Welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Martin. We're broadcasting from Casio today, and we have a really exciting guest joining us to talk about music education and her music and the performances she's had all around the world as well. But before I introduce our special guest, I've got my co-host, as always, joining me for these events, Mr. Rich Formidoni, 890 miles to my east. How are you doing, Rich?
Not too bad, not too bad. 2020 has taken one final storm that looks like it's about to hit any second, but I am safe inside, so all is good.
All right, you dropped out for just one quick second, but yeah, the snowstorm has not started hitting there, huh? But it's already affecting
Not
your
yet.
internet. All right. So our guest today, we're so flattered to have her with us today. She's a pianist, she's a vocal coach, and she's performed and concertized throughout the U.S., Europe, Central and South America, and Asia. She's the clinical assistant professor of keyboard and voice at the University of Illinois, and she's also conductor and head of collaborative piano at the Bayview Music Festival, along with much, much more. Welcome to the broadcast, Dr. Casey Robards. How are you, Casey?
Great, Mike. Thanks for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you and bring everybody on the broadcast here. Now, I have to also bring in another important guest that's with you, Mr. Anthony Patterson, who we've had on our Artist Spotlight before. I guess I should mention to everyone the two of you are married. So welcome as well, Mr. Anthony Patterson. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. This is just wonderful.
Just in a different room in the same house.
Yeah.
We have a whole floor separating us, so it's all good.
No echo problems. We'll be fine.
Actually, yeah, when we initially scheduled this, I weren't sure if you guys were going to be side by side in the same or not. So, but this is the way you guys work, in separate rooms. It keeps the peace, right?
It does. Well,
I guess we'll probably get into that a little bit more later as we go. But I guess, Casey, again, you've got an incredible list of accomplishments, and we'd like to talk about some of those and then talk about what you've been doing, especially the last 9 months since we've all been locked down, and how you've been using technology to continue all your education efforts. So, but I guess first let's dive in. I think, Rich, you've got one of the first questions.
Yeah, and it's one that we asked so many of our artists here. How did you get your start playing piano, and do you play any other instruments as well?
Well, I think I owe it all to Popeye the Sailor Man, which was my first little tune that apparently I was playing when I was 3 or 4 years old. And I had a little toy piano with plastic keys, and I was playing, "Hey, Kevin." I was playing things by ear. So my mom said, "Oh, we need to get you piano lessons." And so, I grew up in a small town in Southern Illinois, and there were, I believe at the time, only 2 piano teachers in the town. So one of them agreed to take me, even though she typically doesn't accept 4-year-olds. But, my parents pleaded the case. And shortly thereafter, they went out and bought a piano, which was a really big deal. A little Kimball upright. So, I could play you a tune that I won Little Miss and then insert the name of my town. I think I was 5 or 6. I still remember wearing a crown, carrying a bouquet of roses, and parading around this, the stage. And after playing Old Bob's Dog. So, I'll save that for later in the broadcast if we get really bored. I'll play for you Old Bob's Dog.
Oh, my.
But that's where it all began. It was just, very simple with piano lessons. And, the weird thing is that I love to play. No one ever told me to practice. I mean, literally, no one ever made me practice.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it's not work at that point, right?
I didn't realize how strange that was until I was much older and started teaching myself. I said, wait, you mean all the kids don't just practice on their own without being bribed or, setting the egg timer and all that kind of stuff. So, but I played sports. I did all kinds of things. But I started playing in a local church when I was 11. I think I was 11 years old. And so that was my first professional gig, so to speak. I mean, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but years later, I realized how much accompanying experience I had gained already as a child, playing for all the events at school and the choirs and the musicals. And, I played Guys and
Sure.
Dolls when I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
I accompanied for an alp horn player at our local Schweitzer Fest. Of course, we were sister cities with this Swiss, thing. And so this artist, she brought out a French horn, an alp horn, which is, the long, like Luden's
Oh, the
commercial,
Ricola
the
horn.
cough drop commercial. Yeah. And then she brought a length of garden hose, and demonstrated that it's all kind of the same principle here. And I was out there with my little, portable keyboard under the tent playing playing with this Alphorn player. So
Your Casio portable keyboard.
it must have been. I mean, what else was there back then, The 80s.
Do you remember who your earliest and most important musical influences were when you were learning to play? Apart from Popeye, of course.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I was going to say. Besides Popeye the Sailor Man.
I loved that cartoon. I didn't like spinach, but one of the other sort of unique ways I think I spent growing up was I listened to all kinds of music. I guess mostly it was a classical or jazz radio station, public radio. And when I was in high school and starting to get into more advanced repertoire, then I listened to a lot of pianists. At the time, Evgeny Kissin was a teenager, and he was kind of rising to the top, and of course Rubinstein and Horowitz and all those, little names like that. But I listened to a lot of alternative rock, and I mean, you name it. I had the Columbia cassette tape subscription, so I would get those in the mail and just check off the boxes of whatever was coming, Mahler Symphony or whatever. So I listened to a lot of things, but most of the music that I was playing, it was coming from my own imagination, or just somewhere inside, which led to some very strange interpretations of things that, I played it all how I thought it should sound. And, I realized, you're kind of playing everything in the style of Chopin, at one point. But, I think I was absorbing a lot without even really knowing it. And, the first time I saw symphony orchestra, I mean, I was young. I fell asleep at the concert, so I don't remember a thing. But then in high school, a piano teacher had a weekly, what do you call it, a subscription. She was a regular concert goer to the St. Louis Symphony. And she would bring myself and another student, Ellen Espenschied at the time. She was Ellen Espenschied. And we would sit in the very top row because that's the ticket we bought. And her seat was in the very front row. So after intermission, if no one was sitting next to her, we would go sit by her. So, Leonard
Nice
Slatkin
move.
was conducting those concerts. And
Sure.
and so we went maybe 2 or 3 times a month, for a couple years during high school. And that was incredible. I'm convinced that the quality of sounds that we have in our ear shapes us more than anything else as a musician. I mean, it shows you what's possible. I mean, even more than what you can physically do at any moment. You've got to have some kind of sound in your ear that you're striving after, even if you don't
That's
know
great.
how you're going to do it,
That's right.
And so, I mean, that's why it's so important that these keyboards have all the investment that you put into them, because, that's what's driving our imagination, is the fact that this kind of sound is possible. So anyway, that's since I forgot your question, Rich.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, and you answered it. I was curious about your influences. It sounds like Chopin was a big one for your piano style.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
the moving down the seats in the theater. I've used that move at Yankee Stadium many times myself.
That's right. Works in all kinds of venues.
So I just wanted to mention with this, we do have a nice crowd gathering on YouTube and Facebook. We're watching the live chat, so if you guys have any comments or questions along the way, we can see those. So if you've got questions for Casey, please bring them on. And with that being said, I want to go to the next question and ask a little bit about your position at the University of Illinois. What do you do? Tell us.
That's a good question. In this field, I'm the term nowadays is collaborative pianist, which has a history of sorts, which is a kind of a funny story. But we used to be called accompanists, or all these other somewhat sometimes derogatory connotations, and accompanied by the comments after the concert where it's like, and you played well too, or and what you do is important too, and stuff like that. But as a pianist, a long time ago, I really decided to not leave the solo repertoire behind, but really focus on playing with other people. And that can, I mean, that opens up a whole universe of possibilities, because now as a collaborative pianist, you're talking about many, many different career paths and many different skills and a whole bunch of things that you don't really think about as just a solo pianist. So at the University of Illinois, I teach collaborative piano, which again I can explain more what goes into that. I'm a vocal coach as well, which is another offshoot of being a collaborative pianist that some choose to pursue. And this semester, in the spring, I'll be teaching a class on popular piano styles. I'm creating this class from scratch to address the versatility of style and genre that I really hope for my students. And I have some of my students tuning in. Please let me know if you're watching. I mean, just let me know like who you are, so I can see your name and I can refer to my students as they come in. So
Reagan says you're the
I,
best, and
well, hey,
we agree.
You can quote her on that.
I am. It's up on the screen. That's fantastic.
So what I do at the university is a blend of teaching classroom situations and my own performance as well. I'll do a series of faculty performances and collaborate with my colleagues. And the category on our our evaluation every year is creative and scholarly activity. So what goes in that box? It can be lots of off-campus performing. It can be publishing and writing, research, recording, and a lot of recording nowadays, since that's one of the things that we can safely do. And attending conferences. I'm a member of the International Keyboard Collaborative Arts Society, which IKCAS is, if you say it really fast, it's kind of fun. I kick ass. We joke about that. And we had a conference in October that had attendance from all around the world. So, it was kind of a gift of the pandemic that we were doing this on Zoom. So anyway, that's all stuff I would put under the University of Illinois umbrella.
Well, that's amazing. And I think, one of the things we're going to ask is, besides playing piano, you're obviously doing so much as a collaborator that, and these days especially, you got your hands in a little bit of everything.
I love the variety. In fact, I think that's what really drew me to collaborative piano in the first place. I didn't really want to play the same music over and over for 6 months, 8 months. As a collaborative pianist, I might have a different recital program every week or every 3 days, or all kinds of things. What does it sound like to modulate between the key of A?
Wow.
In a forest if no one's there. So, but the variety of people that I work with, it's incredible how many different realities we all occupy. I was just talking to Tony the other day, and I said, take for example, intonation. As a solo pianist, we don't think about intonation at all. We just play whatever's there, and the technician has either done it or not, or the tuning that I select on my keyboard is what it is. But for most musicians, they think about it all the time, and it's a huge concern. And it's the product of most of their technical training, is attention to intonation. And so as a vocal coach, on the other hand, I think about it all the time. So, it's just a small example, but the ways that we think about music can vary so much from instrument to instrument and from style and genre. I think one of the biggest dividers between playing classical music and between playing every other genre is the drum set. Being able to live in a pocket and know what that means is something that we don't often do in the classical music world. On the other hand, the way that we manipulate language, in opera and art song, and all of the nuances of rhythm that come with, it's everything in between the notes. You can't write it down, at all. And I was on a call this fall with a music theater director and pianist who was experimenting with a new form of notation. She's looking at, making like sine waves instead of a staff with notes and, dots and lines and things, because in a way it more accurately represents, what we're doing as soon as you put language in the mix. That's why all the pop notation with lyrics is always, so complicated. It's like you show the 8-year-old the Disney song, and if it's actually transcribed, there's all the syncopations, and it's just like, okay, don't worry about that. Just sing it how you know it. You know what I mean? Just sing it from the recording. So.
You've also a lot of your work involves opera. So I was wondering, what role does a collaborative pianist have in opera?
An opera pianist is simulating the orchestra, and it's really just a logistic matter, because we can't hire an orchestra to come in for the whole rehearsal process, for the opera singers to coach their role and for the staging rehearsals. And whether that's a 6-week process in some of our training programs or schools, or whether that's a 2-week process of a professional production going up, the orchestra is not going to be there the whole time. So a pianist assists in all of those rehearsals. So, it's funny, because on the Casio, if we wanted to sound like a cello, we would just choose cello or choose pizzicato strings, or choose, choose whatever it would be. Right. But as a pianist in an opera rehearsal, they don't provide us with a rack of 8 Casios. We have a piano, and it's like, you sound like the orchestra now. So we're thinking about the velocity of attack and how much pedal we're using, and what kind of voicing, whether we'll even play this note or not. We're constantly trying to translate what we're doing into a realistic orchestral sound, and frankly something that we can physically play, with 10 fingers and 1 brain. So it's an interesting thing to be a pianist in the opera room because you're responsible for so much of what's going on, but you're also a little bit anonymous, or you're a cog in the wheel. And the conductor, the stage director, the divas on stage, I mean, there's a lot going on, the behind the stage folks. So you're really part of the machinery of opera. And I think that the music itself is, for me, the biggest draw. I mean, some of the music is absolutely gorgeous. Some of the storylines are, silly, or could probably be put to pasture. But there's some exciting new things being done. Yeah. But it's fun to be part of that world. And if you love the voice, and if you love singers, which is its own calling, I think,
right.
to really love working with singers and with dramatic performers, then it's a great place to be as a pianist.
Speaking of working with performers, you've also done some work on Broadway touring shows. What were some of the unique aspects of that?
Well, I tell you, I try to prepare my students for what this might be, because I've known folks who have gone into these situations unaware, and it's kind of like the nightmare of of not having something very vital and needing it, or there's no clothes on or something like that. So not to name any names, of course, but going into this Broadway pit, you're sent the score in advance. Of course, just a keyboard book, key 2, key 3, key whatever it is, because the whole process is where the conductor is being replaced by the assistant conductor so that the conductor can have a night off. The assistant conductor comes in to conduct a show or two during a run, and then someone then replaces the assistant conductor who was playing key 2. So I played Wicked a couple of runs, the Carole King Beautiful musical, which that was fun because there's a lot of B3 stuff in that. West Side Story, a few of them. But you walk into the setup, and it's something that you can't recreate or really practice at home, because they've got a mammoth setup. You've got your board, you've got a computer showing all the patch changes, you've got a patch change pedal, volume pedal, 0 to, is it 127?
0 to 127.
27 MIDI, right? I'm learning all about MIDI now. And there's little stickers all over the score. So every time there's a little garage sale sticker, like a little green dot or pink dot or whatever, you have to change the patch.
Oh my goodness.
If you don't change the patch, then you could be big trouble, So the story I like to tell about playing for Wicked as the key 2 sub is the lecture I got prior to the first run, where they said there's a moment when the house falls on one of the witches, I mean, I've never seen the show. I've just, been in the pit, and there's a sound cue that the keyboard controls. And so they're like, I will tell you when to play. And it's hard to tell from the score. It's just a bunch of scribbling written all over. There's no, rhythmic notation or anything like that. And they said, whatever you do, do not let go of the key until we say so. Because if you let go, the sound effect stops, and there's no way to, re-cue it. You can't just pick it up in the middle. So the house would just not do what it's supposed to do,
right.
Orally. So they were very happy with me when I got that part right, because I'm like, why do you leave this to the sub, to do that cue? I mean, why don't you let someone else do it?
And somebody didn't program that keyboard sound properly to put a release on it, so you could just tap it once and it would continue on.
Maybe it's changed by now, I mean, somebody on the call knows better. So,
so I'm going to jump around a little bit because we are getting some comments, about Anthony and Casey playing music together. And certainly, since you guys have been locked up together, that's been one of the many activities, of making music together at home. It's been a little different, and so I wanted to take a moment and play an example of one of the pieces you guys worked on together. And I mean, Anthony, you wrote this, or was this a collaboration? Tell me before we run this piece.
It's always a collaboration. I write it, and Casey tells me if it's
I'm
crap.
more of an editor in the process. That's all I'll say.
And I can tell from a look if I need to go back in and write it again. So
I love it.
So it's to have someone of the integrity of my wife. It's a collaboration. It's an absolute collaboration.
So, and I guess I'll preface this. The piece you have a series of pieces that you've been doing over the last 8 months or so, called co-ops. We've also referred them, co-op as COVID opus. I mean, it's a not the nicest way to put it, but it is the reality of the situation. Is where we are working on music in ways that we never had before, which is going to lead to our next topic in a few minutes, which is about how are we handling music education during all of this. But I guess with all that being said, why don't we take a quick listen? I'm not going to play the whole thing. You can find it online of your co-op number 1. Let's take a listen. So I was trying to find a little place to cut. It's a beautiful piece. I didn't want to stop it. But that is co-op 1, your first of a series of pieces in this, that you two have worked on together, and Anthony, you've worked on with several other players as well in the series. but absolutely beautiful. So thanks, Tim Paul, for asking for a duet, and luckily we had one ready to go. So I guess let's move on to a couple of the other topics, because I think during the pandemic we've all had to adapt to the online way of life, and I just want to learn a little bit more about how you've had to adapt to using Zoom and other platforms to teach. Can you bring us up to speed what you've been up to?
Sure. It's been a real frenzy of learning for all of us in the school systems, and I've tested lots of platforms, and I kind of dove into this thinking, well, this is what we're doing now, so let's do it. So I've got my Casio right next to me, and I've got it, delivering information to the computer, sometimes through an audio interface. But my work as a vocal coach involves being able to play while others sing. So I've been coaching singers now who are sometimes in town, but they're at their own apartment or they're on campus while I'm here at home. And then some of them are in all, cities all over the US. I haven't tried any coachings internationally except for Canada yet. So what I found is that it's highly variable depending on the level of equipment that people have at home. An Ethernet connection is more stable than Wi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whether or not they're using a good mic, an external mic, a USB mic is okay, and all of that stuff. But from a pedagogical point of view, there's so much that we can accomplish, and it's made a lot of us who are teaching really think that process through and think, if I can't so easily simultaneously play while you're singing, what can we still do? Now, as far as the simultaneous part and needing to have a low latency connection, many of the platforms that I've been using offer, latency that's not bad. So the best has been maybe 20, 30 milliseconds, which is about like being in the same room. Some of them, when they get up to be 80, 90, 100 milliseconds, what I'm doing is playing ahead of the singer. I try to calibrate how much ahead I probably need to be. And, because I know the repertoire, because I know, how they probably want to sing it, I think it has been okay. My students have not complained. Now, I am very curious as to what they're actually hearing on the other end of the connection. But, we're going forward. And I think this spring will be still primarily online. At the University of Illinois, it's been incredible. We've had this huge testing program with COVID testing. So it's allowed us to stay in person and on campus for some events, at least for recitals. Everyone's in masks. But we've been testing, they were requiring some of the students to test every other day. Now, I don't know how you got yourself on that list, but,
Right.
some of us were testing once a week. But anyway, I think what will happen after the pandemic slows, hopefully, prayerfully, I think we're going to keep a lot of this technology alive and thriving, and some of the developments that have happened, even in the last few months, I think are transforming our industry right before our eyes, in terms of what's possible and in terms of what people expect. So I had an inventor of a new app and a new web platform. His name is Dr. Lucas Wong. He visited my vocal lit class last week and talked about his 4D piano, which is a MIDI piano player. So I sat here playing my Casio, and I accompanied a singer in Nebraska, over Zoom. And there are better ways to do it. Zoom is not ideal, but I mean, it was incredible. So he's working on a new iOS app right now that's incredible. So it allows me to play a MIDI file and throw it into his 4D on the web, and then the user can customize the track. So they can transpose, they can adjust the tempo, and do all sorts of things. So some of the compromises that we've made because of not being able to gather in person have actually fueled these inventions
Yep.
and these developments. So, I mean, I'll take it all. I think we'll keep a lot of it.
The latency issue is such a brick wall for a lot of musicians who can't jam, and for whom 15 milliseconds of latency is noticeable and annoying. And I think that makes you a saint for putting up with
It does.
higher
Oh,
than
it does.
and intentionally playing ahead of the singer. I have a lot of respect for you for that.
You know what, we had a fall break of a week, over Thanksgiving, and with all of my students the week after Thanksgiving, it was like I went back to what I was used to doing, which is playing with the singer, and they're like, well, that was a little slow, and I was like, oh, I was with you. I'm like, I forgot, I'm sorry. At least I know I still remember how to really do it, but I'm like, okay, let me go back to my ahead playing, and it's weird, but it's okay.
It's
Wow.
one of the many ways that we're going to have to relearn how to interact in real time with human beings once this is all over. I wanted to switch gears a tiny bit. There's an increased focus in general in diversity and inclusivity in so many aspects of music, and I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on how this is reflected in the classical world and what your own experiences have been.
I think in the classical world, we we like to look backwards in a very traditional way, whatever that means, and we have a history of revering the greats, and sort of who we've been told are the greats, and who has gotten the most airplay, and by airplay, I mean, instead of talking about the radio, I'm talking about all of our textbooks, all of our history books, all of our, lessons, the proverbial canon, so to speak. So all of the issues that plague our society happen and thrive and are a facet of the classical music world. And in fact, so much of it has become pretty institutionalized. So for those reasons, this awakening that a lot of society is perhaps grappling with in 2020 is really interesting for the classical music world. I'm on a part of some diversity committees right now that are looking at our curriculum and deciding, what needs to stay and how do we need to adapt. Who are we leaving out of the conversation, just categorically? A lot of economic issues come into play. I mean, how much does it cost to even have an instrument? And then you add in lessons and, all kinds of opportunities. And, it's easy to see that we're looking at some very, very big issues. As a musician, as a person, I was born in Korea and adopted at 7 months. So I came to the U.S. Flying here on a plane to O'Hare with other orphans from an orphanage, and I grew up in an all white environment, and so my first interaction with other Asians or with other people of other races or ethnicities came really from college on. So, without going into great detail, I was part of a Black church for many years and part of the University of Illinois Black Chorus, which is a tremendous group. My family is is among these folks, my mentors, some of my colleagues that I've known for, now for 20, 25 years. So I have very, very, very deeply rooted interests in seeing everyone have a voice and everyone be at the table, so to speak. My research has been on the music of a guy named John Carter, who was an African American pianist and composer and dealt with a lot of racism. And the last 10 years of his life are kind of a mystery. So you can read about it in full detail in my long dissertation. But he's famous for one set of spirituals. And so, researching his life and spirituals in general has been a real passion of mine, and performing the Negro spiritual. I'm part of an intensive right now with Dr. Everett McCorvey, who was on your show, and is really a genius. He
Amazing guy.
Yeah.
He started a group, that has been championing spirituals for 25 years now. And I've had some connection with them, and he and I work at a music festival in Bayview, which is where I met Tony, and where we both teach, and we've been there for a while now. So we do this spiritual intensive every summer, teaching the history of this music, and trying to keep it alive for the next generation. But it's a very interesting intersection right now with what society is grappling with, and whose side are you choosing to be on at this time? And how open-minded can we be? How honest can we be about our history? And how humble can we be in facing up to it, and deciding where to invest our energy next? So I go back and forth between being cynical and being perhaps hopeful, but regardless of what attitude we choose to take, the work is before us. The work is before us, and there's too much talent and too much, just too many contributions yet to be made, for so many people, that we owe it to each other to try to bring everybody into the conversation, and empower who we can.
Well,
Beautifully
very
put.
much for the work you're doing to amplify those voices. That's noble work if there ever was any. No, Anthony's hiding over there. I think it's time we ask the big question here. What's it like being married to another pianist and composer? Oh, yeah. You know what? It's for both of you.
It's magnificent.
Right answer.
Challenging as everything is, and magnificent. We speak the same language, and sometimes we don't speak the same language, like everything. But my goodness, I'm just having actually a ball.
That's so. Which one of you is better? No, I'm.
It's funny how often
My
people
wife
ask
is
us
a
that.
superior musician.
Well, I always think, what do you expect us to say to that? People ask us that all the time. Well, who's better? And it's so funny. I mean, it's. I think it's obvious to us what things we are better at than the other. I mean, it's very clear that we have different strengths and different outlooks. But I mean, it's tremendous. It's I think part of the reason why I don't have I haven't had well, there's lots of reasons, but when the pandemic first started and we were suddenly not able to sing and not able to, make music with other people and do all the kind of normal things, I didn't have a sense of dread about it, and partly because I know I can just go play the piano. I can still make music. I'm not stifled in that way, but also, we're here in the same house. So I mean, we've spent a lot of our marriage actually where I was commuting. So I've lived in Ohio and Indiana, and Tony was in Michigan. And Illinois, I've also was in Illinois for some of that time too. So to actually be living in the same house was already, kind of a treat. So I mean, just silver linings of the pandemic. So and now we're both here in Illinois. So that's nice.
And thanks for the comment, Daryl. It's like, man, that's a lot of music under one roof between the two of you.
That's why we have these.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about gear. Casey, what Casio instruments have you been using? I think you guys, between the two of you, have a few Casios in the house, and tell us, how, what different ways have you been using each of them?
I've been using and I'll answer the golf question. I'll let Tony answer that. But now we're on to tennis. So I have been using the Casios for years, actually. I had one in an apartment where I was practicing in Bloomington, Indiana, one of the Privia, probably a 160, maybe 130 even, quite a while ago. And I've had some come and go, but I mean, as soon as I was able to pick up a keyboard under one arm and carry it around, and not lose any of the quality of sound and feel, I'm like, okay, I'm never going back. This is it. I'm not lugging around an 80-pound keyboard with a rolling wheel case and trying to go up and down stairs. I'm not doing that anymore. So I was a convert to the Privia line first. And then right now we have the latest Privia. Actually, it's next to our Steinway, the PX-S3000. And that's what I play most of the time. I'm going to make Tony switch it back into here when school starts again. But we've got a PX350 here as well. But being able to play outside, I've used them on tons of outdoor gigs. Being able to play without another monitor has been a real advantage. So just, one less piece of equipment to use if I'm with just another solo singer, and, we don't need to broadcast to a giant field or barn or something. And using as a MIDI controller now is something that I'm working on every day. So we also play the Grand Hybrid quite a bit, and we've used these particularly in our duo concerts where, a hall, they may have 1 9-foot, and then I don't know, you could wheel in an upright or something maybe from somewhere in the building.
Right.
So, being able to bring a Grand Hybrid in and have it match in a hall, having it match a 7-foot, 9-foot Grand has been fantastic for us, as a duo. So I'm really excited about the Casio line, and I'm always talking about it. So,
Yeah, it was mentioned. I don't know if you saw the comment, but somebody commented earlier when we were playing the piece, the co-op one piece earlier, the duet, how nicely the Privia fit with the Steinway that's in your house. And I think whether it's the Privia or the Grand Hybrid, obviously with the larger speaker system, that's a whole different scenario, because you guys used that on stage, I don't believe without even any other additional amplification, which is amazing that instrument can carry the room basically in the same way a grand piano can. And to have that action along with it is a real treat.
It is amazing. I mean, you could use the Grand Hybrid for a church, and play congregational hymns without any extra amplification. I mean, that was one of our little tests. So, yeah, we use them all the time. And for me, I'm usually trying to forget the fact that I'm playing a digital instrument. Once I've got everything in place, I just want to play the keyboard and not really think about what's going on. And so as in a classical music setting, these instruments have allowed me to do that. So it's kind of a backhanded compliment, I guess, but it's a collaboration of another kind, so with you guys. So
that's a very gratifying thing to hear. That's, first off, to hear you talk about the different usages that we always talk about the Privia being lightweight and portable and play outside and no monitors and all this and that, and to have it, spoken back to us as here's how I'm using it. It's just, job perk.
Yeah,
but no, the comment about wanting to not know what's going on and just sit there and play piano and have it feel and look like a piano. That is the whole point. At least when you select a piano sound in a Privia or a Grand Hybrid, we want you to close your eyes and feel the real thing. So if that's what you're getting, then that is nothing but complimentary. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, and I'm just going to put on my Casio shirt for a minute. I guess it's already on, but I mean, I think that's one of the things that I think we all here enjoy about the latest Privias and the Grand Hybrid. There's all these little details that help put you in that experience, whether it be the key knock or the noise of the damper pedal and the felt coming off the strings, all of those little nuances, not to mention the realism when you are using that pedal and all the resonance that is generated within the tech that we've got. So it really is an experience, and we love it when you get lost playing it. It's really lovely to hear. So thank you. So I guess, oh wow, and lots of people commenting. I have a Casio CTK 4200 and love it. Thank you very much. Daryl Levine, Grand Hybrid, thank you. Awesome. So about the golf game.
Can I take that?
Absolutely.
All right. So Casey is a much more consistent player. At some point after I had been playing for 10 years and I got Casey playing, she said what I thought was just a offhand remark, not anything that had to do with me. I don't want to be playing this bad 10 years after I've started. So Casey is a much more consistent player. She has a beautiful swing. I, on the other hand, have had a par at a golf course. So there's the balance, I think.
Oh, those are fighting words.
He's throwing down the gauntlet now, and this is after he played every day one summer. So I'm going to have to get out my membership card.
It's a pretty safe gauntlet to throw as it starts to get freezing cold out.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to have to take it out on an indoor mini golf course.
I tried to create a pickleball court in our basement, but we're playing it with ping pong balls. So
it's fun.
Well, lots of people commenting. Thanks to Casey and Tony. It's great to see you. Have a blessed Christmas, and we couldn't agree more. This was an absolute treat to have you here with us from this hour to share a little bit about what you've been up to and how Casio has been part of your life, including what you're doing for your job in Illinois. So I guess with that being said, we're going to wrap things up for today. But Casey, I've got your website up here. Is that the best place people should go to learn more about you?
That's fine. Yeah, it's I've got a presence on the University of Illinois website as well as the Bayview Music Festival, but it will all link from my website.
Fantastic. All right, everybody go check CaseyRobards.com. There's there's a ton of video content and a lot more to listen to and see on the website, and everyone go check that out. And everybody's commenting happy holidays, and from everybody here at Casio and to everybody watching today, everybody happy holidays, stay safe, enjoy, wear those masks, and hopefully we'll see you soon in 2021. Looking forward to a different kind of year than this one. So,
just a bit.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Anthony. And on behalf of Casio, take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.